We head out to the Fan Hotline, NBC Sports, and NFL Stock Exchange podcasts. Connor Rogers joins us right now. Connor, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
I'm feeling a little bit better after the DePodesta leaving Cleveland thing. I don't know if that registers on your side of things, but we're feeling great today.
Was he that much of an evil character amongst the quiet personnel circles over there?
Yes. Yeah, I think it was just baseball guy running a football organization really upset a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, right? It's always, I've been covering the draft for a long time, and it's always fascinating to learn behind the scenes, like what people actually do in the roles they're in scouting. Sometimes you're pleasantly surprised. Sometimes you realize people are, maybe not qualified or overhyped by assumption. So I get that feeling of why it's easy to do. And, obviously the baseball aspect is a much more bigger comfort level for him, for sure.
Well, we're just happy he's gone. All right, Connor, let's get to the quarterback class to start this. Obviously, the Browns have 2 first-round picks. As of right now, neither Dillon Gabriel nor Shedeur Sanders have separated themselves or done anything of any consequence on the football field. So we'll start here. How many potential first-round quarterbacks are you seeing right now?
I think 3 are really in the conversation, and I would bet a large amount of money that not all 3 declare. I would actually even say it's closer that 2 of the 3 don't declare. And, that's Ty Simpson at Alabama, who's really played his way into this conversation this year. And I always kind of caveat this with a lot of these guys. Fernando Mendoza from Indiana is the next one, and Dante Moore from Oregon is the other one, is that these guys have not played a ton of football, especially Simpson and Moore, where what we see these next couple months here in big games is really going to matter so much when you're evaluating one-year starters. For Mendoza, it's a little different because he did transfer from Cal where he played, although I still think there's questions about him as well. So I think if the draft was today and all 3 of those guys declared, all 3 would go in the first round. And there's a lot of reasons to like all 3, as much as you always get a little scared off by the one-year starters, specifically in Moore and Simpson. And then I think the reality is I don't think Arch Manning is going to declare. I don't think he should. I don't think Lenoris Sellers is going to declare from South Carolina, and I don't think he should. And I think that people are already doing what they always do, understandably, getting very excited for the following year, where we're going to have Julian Sain from Ohio State in that conversation, and maybe C.J. Carr from Notre Dame, and on and on the wheel kind of spins, guys.
It sounds like, last year it felt like a lot of people were discussing 2026, that'll be the draft, and you got a good draft pick, but you just missed in 2025. And now it feels like we're not even to 2026, and we're doing the same conversation that we just did last year, and people are just moving it.
Well, why?
Yeah, why is that?
Because it's easy to poke holes in guys when you actually have real tape on them. This happens every year, right? It's easy to get excited with flashes, but then when it's time to get down to brass tacks and evaluate them on a bigger sample size, you're going to find more flaws. It's the hardest position in sports. So, that's not every year. I remember summer scouting before Caleb and Drake May's year, and that year was what I would call a little bit of an outlier year. Like, you watch the tape of Caleb Williams and Drake May, and even Michael Penix and Bo Nix going into their last seasons, and you're like, man, there's a lot here with these guys. And then Jaden Daniels played his way all the way up, and J.J. McCarthy went earlier than anyone expected. It's not normal, right? It's not normal for that. Usually you go into a year like Arch Manning was deemed, the number 1 overall pick, and a rough start to the season. He's starting to turn it around. Once again, I don't think he's going to declare, but it's just when you have more games, it's so easy to poke holes in the hardest position to play.
So if I can glean from this, you think Simpson and Moore will go back to college, and that means Mendoza comes out. When you look at Fernando Mendoza, do you see superstar? Do you see star? Do you see good starting quarterback? What do you see as the potential ceiling there?
More a good starting quarterback, right? Because I don't think he has the playmaking ability out of structure with the raw athleticism to be the superstar. I mean, look at the superstars in the league right now. They can really do it all. It's, Mahomes, Josh Allen, of course, Lamar Jackson when healthy. Burrow's a little different because I think Burrow is such a ridiculously elite processor, and I think even Burrow buys himself more time than Mendoza does, and that's going back to when he was a prospect as well. I think Mendoza's got a good arm and size, and I think he plays really well within the offense, that he understands exactly what he's supposed to do as a point guard. I think he can make the challenging throws. He runs a little bit in college, but that's not going to be his game at the NFL level. You're going to hear a lot, and I haven't landed here yet, but you're going to hear a lot of people draw back comparisons to Jared Goff kind of players. Now, going back to the original point here, it probably makes the most sense for him to go back to Oregon. They could pay him a ton of money. He can continue to get bigger and stronger and better. Simpson is a little bit more 50-50, and here's why. And I don't have a direct source on this down at the school, but he's somebody that he was a 5-star recruit. He sat for 3 years, all in Alabama, which you love. He didn't just ping pong around schools looking to play. He's prepared to be as the backup at Alabama before he got his chance to start. And now you're seeing those 5-star tools pan out in Alabama's offense. And I think he's a really good processor. He sees things really well pre-snap. He will challenge the middle of the field. I think Simpson actually has a chance to be like, is he a strike while the iron is hot kind of guy? And we have a draft that Mendoza and him go in 2 of the first 3 picks.
Connor, I'm curious. Someone like yourself, you had Shedeur as the number 2 quarterback last year, and then you had Dillon Gabriel as the 10th quarterback in your class. When you see that, and then you see how the Browns have gone through this, where the entire stretch of the way they have told you and everyone that will listen that Dillon Gabriel is better than Shedeur, and Shedeur is too far behind, and they've continued to play Dillon Gabriel. What is your reaction when your rankings would have suggested otherwise?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? Because they do have the issue that they took one player 2 rounds earlier than the other, and it's not like they took one player in the 5th round and another in the 7th round. They took one on day 2, and day 2 picks usually get a decent run to see if they can show you anything. And Shedeur was a day 3 flyer, and just because I thought he was a better player than that, and I think it's a little easier for me doing this from a broad picture. Evaluating largely the talent, and I think with Shedeur is he didn't fall just because of talent. I think there's a lot more reasons there. Maybe teams didn't want to put up with the sideshow or whatever it is. I just saw Shedeur make more pro throws at the college level in bigger spots, it felt like, than Dillon Gabriel. And that's nothing against Dillon Gabriel, that played at a big program at Oregon, and I think always punched above his weight class for not a big guy. But it's an offense that, it puts enough talent around you and a system that can hide some of your deficiencies where, listen, Shedeur has his problems too. He holds onto the ball forever. He takes way too many sacks. He needs to play faster. But I also think Shedeur is much better throwing the ball outside the numbers and in the middle of the field than Dillon Gabriel ever was. So they're in that building every day seeing both guys. So hopefully they're being honest with that process and saying we think one guy is much more ready than the other. I would be fascinated to know what you guys, I'm sure the calls you guys get are outrageous. I'd be curious to know what you guys feel. But if it just based on talent, Shedeur Sanders at least has a shot in this league to hang around as a starting quarterback. I never projected Dillon Gabriel as anything more than a backup.
I think our take was pretty. JP and I were in lockstep, and what I think was particularly frustrating is Shedeur looked good in every opportunity he was given in camp, when we watched him in camp, and in the preseason until the Rams game. And then I think there was the Rams game became the prevailing take, whereas Dillon looked awful in practice, in camp, and in his first preseason exposure, and then got into that last game, looked passable. And then the Browns kind of used that to see that we were right about this, and that kind of informed their season. Am I off on anything?
No, you're right. And Connor, I think that's part of the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because I wanted to know if you just think it's as pull your hair out, frustratingly mad as we do. The idea that you spend so much of your time and so much of your energy, and I think you capped it right. And as of right now, you're being proven right because Dillon is not playing good football, but they continue to tell you otherwise for months on end. And I'm sure you had a lot of people in your mentions being like, "What happened here?"
Yeah, exactly. And it's a weird one, right? Because it's not like I evaluated Shedeur as this surefire top 20 pick or anything like that. And I try to really avoid doing the quarterback curve exercise. I thought Cam Ward was definitely in a league of his own, and Jackson Dart's playing better than anybody ever anticipated. While, we're going to get a look at Tyler Shuck. But I do think there's something there where, sometimes teams just totally overreact to the situation. And it feels like, if you're the Browns right now, you need to get a look at everything you possibly can because you're going to be going into a draft where you might have to make another quarterback decision. And I wouldn't want to go into that draft saying, well, I never even got a look at Shedeur. Well, then why'd you even draft him, right? And this is a larger conversation way at the top. Where was the divide on who wanted him, who didn't? What was the plan for him? Did they have one for him? And that's a very, very frustrating conversation for me as somebody that evaluates all these players every year. Right? I try to get to well over 300, and I feel like especially getting to talk to, about 45 of them one-on-one at the Combine each year, I generally have a good idea of what guys can and can't do what the development plan should be for them. And it just blows my mind. Billion-dollar organizations, and this isn't crediting me, it's really just discrediting them. Billion-dollar organizations with massive staff and all these things don't have the right plan for all these guys, or put guys in, square pegs and round hole situations. And it just feels like the Shedeur case is kind of a waste of everyone's time. Is that egregious to say?
No. To this point, until they play him, it sure feels like we've wasted a lot of time on this one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, and I watch their offense as much as I can with Dillon Gabriel, and you can't live in the NFL that way, man. Like, you can't. It's a very, very hard way to play football, and it wasn't that hard of a projection. I think the consensus was that was the kind of quarterback he was going to have to be at the NFL level, and a guy that maybe spot starts for you at times, but they're giving him a genuine run to show, like, can he be anything more than that? And third-round capital is third-round capital. It's not a lotto ticket pick. You should be able to get some kind of decent player with that selection in a good front office.
Yeah, I was really frustrated because I really like Charles Grant out of William & Mary as a developmental offensive line piece. Can I ask you, as offensive line and defensive line is where I tend to watch. I never proclaim myself as a tape watcher, but if I do, I focus on the trenches because that's just what I believe is most important outside of quarterback. I'm surprised that there's a kid out of Utah, Caleb Lamu, who I've watched a couple times now, and he looks like a prototypical NFL tackle, and every ranking I've seen of him, or every mock draft, has him as like the 16th pick, the 20th pick, the 25th pick. I'm just surprised why, given the scarcity of great left tackles, I'm not sure if you've done work on him, why a kid like that hasn't maybe shot up to be a potential top 10 pick yet.
No, it's a good call-out for sure. Lamu is somebody that we heavily evaluated throughout summer scouting. I believe this is only his third year in college. I want to say he's a redshirt sophomore. Yep. I had him as the sixth best tackle in the draft from our summer rankings out of, I believe I evaluated 15. So, and honestly, a little bit of a slower start to the year, but he's really turned it on this last month is what I've noticed, or at least over the second half of their season so far, which should be expected for a redshirt sophomore that I think in the spring he was probably only about 300 pounds, and he's going to play at 320, 315 in the NFL. He's got that kind of frame for a youngster. I think he's 6'6". And Spencer Fano, their other tackle, is projected as a potential first-round pick as well. So Utah has bookends at tackle. I think projections can be slow to catch up because what they often do is sometimes they tell you what a guy is right now, and the NFL does not evaluate offensive linemen in that strategy. They will evaluate what you can be if you're a younger player, right? And I think that goes back to Lamu, who absolutely has all the tools, size, mentality of a top 15, top 10 kind of pick. And I'll tell you this right now, what helps him more than anything, this tackle class hasn't played very well this season compared to summer expectations. A lot of guys are going to have to move inside the guard. Some of them don't have the length. Some of them don't eat. Lamu has everything. So I ultimately thought going into this year there was a good chance he would return for another season and then go be a top 5 to 8 pick. But once again, could be a strikes while the iron is hot kind of guy, and would not shock me if he's actually the first tackle taken in this draft if he declared.
I probably should also be playing closer to about 325, but that was my 20s. All right, buddy, we appreciate you. Great stuff, and I'm sure we'll bug you to be on several times between now and April, man. Appreciate you.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks so much. Enjoy the weekend.
You too, bud. Connor Rogers there, NBC Sports and NFL Stock Exchange podcast.